Hello and welcome back to the More to Life podcast, episode 12, How to Reset to Get the Most Out of Every Single Week. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a strategy that I personally use to make sure I get the most out of every single week. I keep progressing every single week and generally so that my life just keeps getting better every single week. And as I say, life is short, so you want to keep squeezing every ounce of enjoyment that you can get out of each week, and also know that you're continuously progressing every single week. So you're getting closer and closer to achieving your big goals, to becoming your best self, whatever it is for you. And also by doing this, you then maximize the amount of time that you get to spend living your ultimate dream life because you get there faster. So let's go. But first, the win of the week. For the win of the week this week, I'm actually so excited about this because I mentioned a few episodes ago, I think it was in episode 5, I was talking about investing and building your wealth and all that kind of thing. And I only started investing this year and I was very slow to start off too because I didn't know enough about it and I wanted to actually have enough knowledge that I could be confident in what I was investing in and confident that I was doing the right thing. So just this week, my investment portfolio hit €1,000. So obviously, in the grand scheme of things, it's still pretty small, but you have to get from one figure to two figure to three figure to four to five to six, and so on and so forth. So I've just moved up from the three-figure mark to the four-figure mark. Obviously, it's still very early stages in my investing journey, but I'm constantly learning more and more, and I'm getting more and more confident in my own investing strategy and also in my knowledge when it comes to investing. I feel like my voice today is I feel like my voice today is a little bit husky sexy. Well, hopefully it's husky sexy and not husky disgusting. But let me just take a sip of water. But yeah, so I'm really excited that I've hit that milestone. I've moved up to the four-figure mark. The next stop is the five-figure mark, when it hits 10 grand. And I'll just say really briefly, my investing strategy is mostly centered around dividend growth stocks. Dividends being usually either a monthly or quarterly percentage that a company will pay you just to own shares of their company. And obviously, it's a small percentage, but you build it up over time and it's 100% passive income. Like, all you have to do is put money somewhere and then they just pay you, basically. And my intention is to invest in companies that have pretty decent growth as well. So not only am I getting paid just to own the shares, but the stock price itself is going up. So the money that I have in there is going up itself as well. So it's like win-win. I am also invested in some ETFs, which are probably the safest kind of investment, or at least one of the safest. I'm not going to make a blanket statement like that, but what that is you put in a certain amount of money, right? And then you get a tiny little percentage of a bunch of companies. So even if one of those companies goes down, the rest of them keep it going. It doesn't really impact it at all if one or two companies doesn't do well. So if you want to know more about the financial stuff and building wealth and everything like that, that's all in episode 5 of the podcast, Creating Amazing Money Habits and Building Unthinkable Wealth. And let me know if you'd want to hear more about that kind of thing, because I honestly think it's a skill that everybody should have. Okay, so as I mentioned, in this episode, we're going to be talking about an end of week strategy that is so easy. It just takes a little bit of intentional thinking, but that will actually change your life. And I I feel like we hear sentences like that all the time, but this can't not change your life if you actually use it, because it will force you to up level the habits that you have in your life, and those habits will then change your life. I say the word force as in like gently force, like it's not going to force you and feel horrible and icky gross. It's actually going to feel good because you're like, hey, here's another thing that I can do that'll improve this, and that's you'll see. So there are two main sections to the strategy, and the first section is all about reflection. So you're going to look back at your whole week and assess. So I know these episodes come out on a Wednesday, but you could be listening to this on a Sunday, or maybe you just want to take note of these things so that you can use it on your Sundays or on whatever day you would like to do them. Okay, so first of all, you're going to write down 3 things I'm proud of this week. Okay, because it is time to revel in the wonder that is you. So literally I normally go through in my mind like the different areas of life. So it could be like a win in health and fitness. What am I really proud of that I achieved in the health and fitness section of my life this week? And you may or may not have something for that section. So then you can move on to another section. Something I'm proud of in my career or my business this week. And then you can move on to something I'm proud of in my social life this week, or love life, or personal development in general. You can take that strategic approach of looking at different areas of your life, or you can actually just look at your whole life in general and see whatever comes up for you. So now we're going to move into our next list, and this is a list which is coming from that section. Okay, you'll see what I mean. Basically, you're going to say how to maximize this for the next week. So you're going to look at, I'm going to use examples here because without showing you on paper, it might get a little confusing. So for the first one, you could say, I am so proud that I did all of the workouts I planned on doing this week. Like I got all my workouts in. Okay, so let's say that's in your proud of section. And then you're going to go into the next section and say, okay, how do I maximize this week? So how do you maximize that? Well, you could put your workout clothes out and ready to go the night before, or you could make sure that you have a training plan or something like that, something that's going to give you that structure and make sure that you have systems in place and that it wasn't just a fluke that you did all those things that you're proud of. Do you see what I mean? So you have these wins and it's not just, okay, I'm proud of that, now let's move on. It's, okay, I'm proud of that, now let's make the most out of that. And that'll be really, really helpful for you. And I said write down 3 things you're proud of because once you start putting in actionable steps to maximize those things, and we're going to move on to section 2 in just a second, you actually will have quite a bit of things that you have to actually schedule in and have to add into your week and into your habits. So I wouldn't do more than 3 because you don't want to be overwhelmed and look at it all and be like, now I can't do anything because I'm freaking out and I'm overwhelmed, because that's kind of useless to you, right? 3 would be the most I would do. So with that said, let's move on to the second part of this strategy, and that's to look back at the week and come up with things that, how do I word this properly? So either 3 challenges, 3 things that came up that were challenging for you, or 3 things that you know you could have done better. Like that they might have been kind of shortcomings for you this week. But with that said, it is not something that you're doing to shame yourself for. It's just like, okay, these things could have been better. It's all good. I really want you to give yourself some grace and compassion when you do this part, especially this part. And I'm sure you can guess, but after you've written down those 3 challenges, those 3 things that you may have fallen short on, that's your list of 3, 1, 2, 3. You're going to move on to the next part, which is how to minimize this for the next week. So for each of those things, you're going to come up with a way to minimize that happening in the following week. And this is so, like, you have no idea how useful this is until you actually start using it. So again, let's give an example. Let's say, should I stick with the health example? I feel like that's an easy one to do. Maybe I should move on to like business career or something like that. Let's say you had an Instagram follower goal that you wanted to hit that week and you fell short on it. Okay. Maybe you wanted to hit 1,000 followers that week and you only got to 900 and you're still there and you feel a bit stuck. Okay. In the minimize section, it might be worded as how to minimize, or it might be worded as like how to make sure that this doesn't happen again, or something along those lines. Basically just how do I make the best out of this situation. So with the Instagram follower example, okay, you wanted to hit 1,000, you're only at 900. What can you do next week to make sure that your Instagram game is on point? Maybe you're going to schedule in an hour every single day where you're just going to engage with your target audience and engage with your current audience and just like build relationships and build some rapport with people. Maybe you're going to do that. Or maybe you're going to spend all of Monday creating all of your content for the week so that you're getting reels out, you're getting posts out, you're getting stories out, you're ready to go. Do you see what I mean? So it takes this lack of hitting a goal and it turns it into something actionable. Like, here's what I can actually do to fix this, which totally saves you then from the shame that you can feel when you fall short of a goal. Because in the goal setting space, like, I'm all about setting goals, I'm all about setting big, juicy, juicy goals. And guess what? When you set massive goals, sometimes they don't happen. They don't happen when, I mean, they will happen, but they don't happen in the deadline that you set for them sometimes. So you have to find a way to be okay with that, and make it push you to progress yourself even further and to put these actionable steps in place. So when you've done this reflection part of your week, you've got 6 total actionable steps. If you've done the 3 to maximize the good stuff and the 3 to minimize the bad stuff, bad with air quotes, because it's not bad as such. It's just, yeah, whatever, you get it. But you've got 6 actionable steps. The next part is, when you're planning your week, these 6 actionable steps must be scheduled in. Like, set time aside to do that thing. And some of them could be like a daily thing. Like with the Instagram example, if you want to set an hour aside every single day for the next week to engage with your community online, that's a daily thing. It's not just one big task that you have to do. Either way, you need to schedule that in, because what is that saying? Like, what doesn't get scheduled doesn't get done, or something like that. I truly believe that. I do. So really find their home in the week. Like, find their little time slot that they're going to live in and help you thrive in. So into section 2 of this strategy, and this is where shit gets exciting, because we have looked back and now we're looking forward. So, I mean, I feel like at this point you probably don't need me to help you set goals. I have been using the SMART method, kind of. I don't fully agree with the SMART method. It's like specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time based. I don't fully agree with it, because I think your version of realistic is totally up to you. And I even put up an Instagram post on that the other day. I was like, you decide you're realistic. Like, who's to tell you that aiming for 10,000 followers on Instagram isn't realistic? I mean, it could be for you. Who knows? We're all living in our own little world. Like, who's to tell you what is and isn't realistic for you? Like, you decide that. So I don't fully agree with the whole realistic and attainable part, which sounds a bit weird, but I definitely agree with making it specific, making it number based, because that way you can track your progress along the way as well. So, long story short, set goals for the week. And within the strategy that I personally use, I do separate the goals into different life areas. The main ones being health, wealth, social, and fulfillment. However, some weeks I could be more specific with those life areas. Like, I could have a goal for YouTube, I could have a goal for the podcast, I could have a goal for my workouts, I could have a goal for my nutrition. It See what feels good for you. I would honestly say not to set more than like 5 in a week. Like, even 5 is kind of pushing it. For the most part, I would say pick like 3 goals. And that way you can really focus on those goals, and there might even be more than one actionable step that you can take towards those goals. So, like, even thinking on the Instagram example, you could be engaging with your community. You could also be doing loads of reels, because reels have the potential to hit audiences that aren't already following you, and sometimes they can go viral and a bunch of people will follow you. Like, you don't know. So, point being, you could have one specific goal, such as hit 1,000 followers on Instagram, and there can be more than one thing that you can do for that goal. So you don't want to have too many goals within a short space of time, because you might freak out and get overwhelmed, and we don't want that. So I feel like we're going a little bit I'm talking all around the world to explain this, but when you're setting your goals, figure out a way to put a number in there. And the reason I say that is because you want it you want it to be totally obvious when you've hit the goal. I've heard people setting goals such as, let's say this like really vague example of like, I just want to have a good week. Like I I encourage you to have a good week, but how do you know when you've 100% had your good week? Like there's no finish line, you know? So if you're doing a fitness goal and you want to run 20K this week, it's pretty obvious when you've hit that 20K because, you have the numbers as you go. So that's where those real specific numbers can come in. And then as the days go by, as the week is going by, you can see where you're at and you're like, okay, it's Thursday and I'm not even halfway to the goal yet. I need to step it up a notch. I need to do more. And that's where you start achieving when you have that intention and you can actually see where you're at with things. Like this whole podcast episode is all about intentional living. I talk about intentional living all the time, but what I mean by that, and I'm sure there are probably different definitions of it, but what I mean by that is assessing where you're at, giving yourself actionable steps to progress further, setting goals, and even with the goals, set your actionable steps for that as well. And you want to schedule all these things in so that you like you then have no choice but to hit the goals. Like it just happens because you're intentionally looking at what you got to do, you're scheduling it in, and you're doing it. And there you go. So that is how I would suggest resetting your week to make the most out of every single week, to keep progressing every single week, and to get closer to your dream life every single week or your dream self, whatever it is for you. Step number 1, reflect. 3 things you're proud of, 3 ways to maximize those things in the next week, 3 challenges or things you may have fallen short on, and 3 ways to minimize those within the next week. There you've got 6 really actionable steps already. And then you're going to set up to 5 goals. I would say the sweet spot is about 3 goals, things that are really important to you. Attach a number to them, and then you're going to set your goals for the week. Goals being specific number-based things that you will 100% know when you've achieved, such as you're running 20K, you're hitting 1,000 followers on Instagram. I'm actually pretty close to that myself, so maybe that's where that example is coming from. But you're taking those actionable steps and you're scheduling them into the week as well. Okay, moving on to the quote of the week. So the quote of the week this week is, stop living on autopilot, start living intentionally. Again, ties in perfectly with what we're talking about today. You can easily lose a lot of time when you don't live intentionally and you don't assess where you're at and put in the action steps and progress. Because have you ever just noticed, like, I think this year and last year are really good examples of how time can just slip through your fingers. In Ireland, for example, from it was the 31st of December, no, from the 1st of January 2021 to the 7th of June 2021, we were in full on lockdown. No gyms, no shops, no restaurants, no bars, nothing. And I work in a gym, so I couldn't even work. So we had 5 months straight of just time that easily could have been lost, time that it could go either way. You could just fall into some not so great habits and then yada yada yada, and all of a sudden it's 5 months later. And as I'm looking back at it now, that's kind of what it felt like. But I was doing these things. I was scheduling in my weekly reset for like 4 p.m. every single Sunday, and I was like, I did not miss that at all. But I would not allow myself to miss that, because if I missed that, I would just find that the week after that, I just wouldn't get anything done. I wouldn't even have goals that I was really working towards. And that way, I was not living with intention. So I really, really hope this helps you. I truly think that if you implement this strategy, like, you will be shocked. You will be shocked at how well things start going for you and how much you progress and how fast you progress. Because we lose a lot of time in just not knowing what we're doing. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, I just know that the Dream Life Creation Planner is the one for you. We have a Dream Life Creation Planner and a Dream Life Creation Guided Journal, but the planner is really about these intentional life strategies and just looking at what your goals are, breaking them down, making them actionable. And there's a lot of other goodies in there. Like, we have this whole strategy of incrementally pushing the limits of your comfort zone to the point where each time it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not like traumatic, because that way you can push the limits of your comfort zone but also not get like totally traumatized by how much you're pushing yourself. Like, I just think it's a nice gentle way to ease yourself in. So anyway, that is all in the Dream Life Creation Planner. There's a lot more in there as well that I haven't gone into, but it'll be linked in the show notes or in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. All right, well, thank you for listening to or watching episode 12 of the More to Life podcast. This kind of stuff is my jam. So if you enjoyed this as well, please let me know. Please let me know, because I would love to do more stuff like this. DM me on Instagram. It's at More to Life Kate. And also share on your Instagram stories as well if you've been watching or listening to the podcast, because I honestly love seeing that so much. It's just warms my heart, and the things that people say on their stories about the podcast just like makes me so happy. Like, you guys, this is such a new podcast, but every single time it just makes me so happy. So thank you if you have done that already, and thank you in advance if you're gonna. All right, time to stop rabbiting on. And I'm gonna sit out in the garden right now because we have this beautiful weather right now, and I've literally been in the garden for 2 days straight. Like, I have not left the garden. Like, I actually was supposed to record this episode yesterday, but the weather was so nice I just could not bring myself to come inside and do it. So let's leave it there. Okay, goodbye, have a wonderful 2 weeks, and I will see you next time. Mwah!